I look like who? Last year, I was at a fast food chain with free Wi-Fi because I had homework for a college class and couldn't afford my own internet. I was living off campus, and it was around 1 in the morning. An older gentleman, maybe in his 60s, passed by the booth I was sitting in. It was one of those rounded booths, and started talking to me. At first, it was just polite small talk, but he didn't go away. In fact, he just kept talking and talking long after I had stopped. He sat down in my booth right next to me, legs touching, and started telling me how he was running for president and that I should vote for him. Needless to say, I was uncomfortable, but I didn't want to make a scene with him this close. I kept trying to scoot away while packing my stuff slowly, and he kept on going on about how he couldn't keep a wife and how I was a lovely young lady. After minutes of this, he said something that creeped me out. "You remind me of my daughter. She's in a coma now, though. She was killed and then revived, but now in a coma. You would have been good friends with her. You were so like her. You look like her." I told him I needed to leave right then, and thankfully he left first, calling me his new best friend. He then pointed outside and said if I ever needed to see him, he was living in a van just outside, and he was excited to see me tomorrow. As soon as I felt he couldn't see me, I left and went to my car and drove off as quick as I could, making sure he wasn't following me, and thankfully he didn't. I didn't go back there anymore, and my family even pitched money together to get me an internet connection for my place, so I'd be able to do my homework safe at home. I still see his van too at that fast food place. Future Mr. President, let's never meet again. McDonald's bathroom. So this is my first post on the sub. A friend finally convinced me to share this little story, since she's always been teasing me with it. I'm a 23-year-old male in Florida, fairly introverted, hardly ever get out of the house. This encounter happened a few months ago. It was about 12 a.m., and I was getting a bit stir-crazy and just needed to get out and just chill with someone. So I texted a special lady friend of mine. We made plans to do our normal routine of hanging out at this nice secluded park. I went and picked her up and drove to our spot and spent a couple hours just chatting about anything and everything. Then she got hungry, so we decided to hop in the car and drive down the road for a bit to McDonald's. Hooray for 24/7 fast food. This is where things started to get weird. We arrived at the McDonald's and went inside instead of the drive-thru. She ordered her food while I went to the restroom to wash my hands. I'm a bit of a neat freak. I really wish I hadn't gone to the restroom that night. As soon as I walked into the restroom, I saw this guy standing at one of those heater dryer things. Alright, not too weird, but then I noticed that he was kind of hunched over at it and wasn't moving. Whatever, I ignored him. I washed my hands and realized that he's standing at the only dryer in the place. The damn paper towels were also empty, so I awkwardly tried to ask the guy if he was done using the dryer. He didn't respond. Thoroughly creeped out, I just walked out and dried my hands on my shirt. I get out of the restroom and find my friend, and we sit down at a table to eat. Maybe 20 minutes go by, and we're headed back out to the car to go back to our spot. Well, my friend has to use the restroom, so I figured I might as well also. I mean, surely that guy has got to be gone by now, right? Wrong. That guy is still standing at the dryer, mumbling something to himself now. I go into a stall and take a leak, and can hear him hitting the button of the dryer over and over again. I wash my hands again and don't even attempt to get to the dryer. But then the guy moves as I'm trying to walk past him. He steps back right in my path and just looks at me. I notice he's around my age. He just stares at me and says, Excuse me? Okay. I put my head down, quickly say, "Pardon me," and rush around him to get out of the bathroom. 30 seconds later, as I'm waiting for my friend to get out of the ladies' restroom, the guy walks out. He just sits down at a table near me and is just staring straight at me. My friend walks out and notices the creep just eyeballing me. She jokingly asks, "Make a new friend in there?" I just shake my head at her and try to lead her out of the car without making obvious I wanted to run from this guy. Then he does the weirdest thing. He just starts cackling like a madman. I mean, straight up Joker laugh. I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, crazy druggy dude is gonna do something bad. Then he just suddenly stops, looks down at my feet and says, "Nice shoes, Osiris." Osiris is a brand of shoe. I managed to mutter, thanks, and quickly walk away out to the car. As my friend and I are getting into the car, we notice the guy staring at me from inside McDonald's, just straight eyeballing me, death stare. Then he just stands up and starts booking it towards us. He wasn't running, but he was like speed walking. He bursts through both doors of McDonald's and starts coming right at us. And now he looks angry. I pulled out of the parking so fast, it's a damn good thing the roads were empty. My friend and I went back to our spot and hung out some more. Every car that we saw in the distance, I kept freaking out, expecting it to be the weird guy following us. My friend just teased me about it the entire night, and still teases me about it to this day, about how I made friends with a creeper in the bathroom who liked my shoes. I hate my job. First-time poster, and all that amazing jazz. Okay, so when I got my first job at a fast food place, I was really excited because I'd be earning my own money. The first few months there were great. My birthday was celebrated and everything. Anyways, we have this really socially awkward old African-American man who occasionally comes in and orders food and takes a nap at one of our tables. The managers don't mind because they figured he's homeless. One day he comes into our store looking really flustered, and he's groping himself in all the wrong places and turns into our bathroom. I don't think anything of it, and kept taking all the current customers' orders. After about 5 orders, which usually takes about 10 minutes if the orders are short, the old man walks out and is fumbling with what I thought was his wallet at first, and I couldn't really see unless I squinted. Oh, how wrong I was. It turned out to be his really gross erection, and he was playing with himself in the lobby near the restrooms. I was so shocked, I didn't want to move, so I looked away and hoped he would stop. He didn't, and kept doing it all the way up to the end of our counter, which is about 3 registers away from where I am. I'm shaking and feeling really grossed out when he finally puts it away, and he walks up to order some food. When he's done ordering, I walk away and ask my coworker if she saw what he was doing. She said she did, and told me to get our manager, and he basically tells me to brush it off. He probably wasn't doing that. After dinner rush, my manager sends me out to clean up the lobby and to stock the soda area. As I'm cleaning up the soda area, I see the old man groping himself while staring at me, and I start to really get uncomfortable and walk away. That's when he started grunting, and I just ran to my manager, and I'm so uncomfortable, I'm about to have a panic attack. My manager finally decides to believe me, and he goes out into the lobby to ask the man to leave. The old man isn't there, but he left a huge mess on the table, which mostly consisted of used napkins. It's been a few weeks since he came in. I hope it was the last. So creepy old man touching himself in the lobby, I hope we never, ever meet again. Bondage at Burger King. So this happened yesterday, but I'm pretty sure it's the creepiest encounter with a stranger I've had in my life. I've never really written about a personal experience like this, and I don't know if y'all will find it weird, as I did, or if I'm overreacting, but I thought this would be the place to share it. Yesterday, my friend and I were at my house and found ourselves craving gross fast food. I live about a half mile from a Burger King, which my friends and I had walked to before. It was quick, approaching dusk, but my neighborhood is relatively nice, and I never felt uncomfortable or unsafe walking anywhere nearby before. The weather had been mild around here for December, and we decided to walk instead of drive the short distance to the King. For some background information, my friend and I are both 16-year-old girls. We have both had encounters with creepers in the past, but my resting bitch face has deterred a lot of unwanted advances. My friend has a pepper spray canister in her purse, but we left it at home. I guess because we were so comfortable in my neighborhood that we didn't think anything odd would happen. When we reached the Burger King, it was oddly desolate for dinner time. The only people in the restaurant were the workers, an old Italian man who seemed to be the franchise owner, and a middle-aged African-American man sitting in the corner, facing the window. The way the building is set up, you order your food around the corner from the seating area, and those at the cash register cannot easily see those seated in the restaurant. There is a side door that opens directly onto the dining area, and you can enter and leave without whoever is working the cash register ever seeing you. As we were ordering our milkshake and fries, the owner was screaming at the young employees, which made my friend and I pretty uncomfortable. When our food was ready, he brought it to the counter and leered at us, asked us if we had just been to the beach. Neither of us were dressed particularly revealing, and I just gave him a dirty look and sat down to eat my food, thinking that he was probably the creepiest person I was going to meet that day. When my friend and I sat down to eat, the man who was seated in the corner got up to leave. We barely looked at him, but when he was passing our table, my friend and I noticed an odd detail. Though he was middle-aged and was wearing what looked to be a work uniform, he had bright, neon green contact lenses in his eyes, like the kind people wear with Halloween costumes. I giggled to my friend that he must really like Hobson, a rapper whose persona includes wearing white contact lenses. But we didn't find it too strange until he came back in the side door 3 minutes later. When he came back in, he was carrying a misshapen large bag. He was previously seated very far from us, but when he came back, he took the seat closest to us, 2 or 3 feet away. The tables were angled differently, so his back was facing us. We thought this was weird, but we continued eating while he pulled out an ancient laptop from his bag and started it up. A few moments later, my friend grabbed my leg and made a motion for me to look next to me. There, the man had clearly angled his laptop screen, so it was in the view of my friend and I. I heard his heavy breathing before I fully grasped what was happening. There, on his window media player screen, were 2 naked women in what seemed to be a dungeon, strapped down and being whipped by a 3rd woman in a rubber suit. Now, I have grown up around computers, and I am friends with lots of dirty teenage boys, so I have seen pornography before. But this didn't seem like normal bondage porn at all. It seemed less staged and less professional. And the fact that the man had it on a disc instead of the internet made it pretty creepy. What made it even creepier was that he was steadily increasing the volume on his laptop. By the time my friend and I fully grasped what was happening and got up to leave, it was on full volume and still angled towards us, while the woman's screams of pain echoed through the dingy restaurant. Of course, while this was happening, the manager was still yelling at his employees, and they were definitely unaware of what was going on. My friend and I didn't stop to tell them what was happening, and we booked it out of there, running across a busy intersection. I looked back to see the man getting up and walking out of the Burger King into what only can be described as a stereotypical black creeper van. I told my friend this, and we began to panic and ran into a nearby gas station. The van drove into the parking lot and sat there. We hid inside for almost half an hour, and the employees probably thought we were shoplifting, but we were too scared to make the walk home with this weirdo on the loose. Eventually, the van drove off, and we peeked outside to make sure the coast was clear. By this time, it was completely dark. I called my best guy friend and asked him to come pick us up, but he was across town. My friend and I stayed on the phone with him as we began to trek back to my house, which, though short, when paranoid, seemed endless. When we got home, we speculated on the man's intentions and thanked our lucky stars that he didn't grab us on our walk back. I wasn't able to sleep well last night. I just saw his blank, green eyes and his creepy van in my dreams. It really sucks not feeling safe in your own neighborhood. I think it was probably exciting for him to scare young girls, and I think maybe this was his form of exhibitionism. If anything like this has ever happened to any of you, I would love to hear about it. Or if you know it is a thing in the creeper community to force people to watch your weird porn in public. I'm just really confused by this whole experience. My friend's dad called a non-emergency police line today about this, and if anyone is interested, I can let you know what they said when I find out. British Grandpa. I work at a McDonald's as a drive-thru presenter, and our small store gets a lot of different customers. We get a lot of drunks, high people with munchies, bored people looking to piss people off, seeing us as an easy target, even some travelers from other countries now and again. But I think that out of all of them, there is one that I will never forget. That person is a man I had named my British Grandpa. I met him around 5 p.m. one day, right as I started my night shift. I was super pissed off that day because every customer I had been a total dick, mostly plant workers wanting to take off their bad day on me, and had just about had enough of it when I went to hand out a giant order to someone, and instead of taking it, they decided to drive off without their food. I was really stressed and pissed about it, so the words, "Oh my God, really?" came out of my mouth. This is great. Now they'll probably call and blame it all on me. Flew out of my mouth uncontrollably and out the window right as an older man with white, slick back hair pulled up in a white truck. I heard comforting words come from him, pulling me out of my rage. It's alright. You know, you can please some people, but you can't please them all. That's what I always say. I smiled immediately and was pleasantly surprised by his British accent. We usually never get visitors from the UK. I thanked him and handed his order. He told me I had a beautiful smile and drove off with a wave goodbye. I'm a bit embarrassed to say, but the guy kinda made my entire day better. Every time I did complain about lateness or a mistake I had made, I just repeated his quote in my head, and it really worked for me. From that day on, he started coming by every other day around 5, right as my shift started, and would always tell me lovely things and complimented me on my smile and my features. I sometimes give regulars nicknames that I address them as to my coworkers, and this one was known as British Grandpa because he was always so sweet and was kind of like the grandpa I never had. Though I did think it was kind of funny that he would come by almost every day after 2 whole months. If he was a traveler, wouldn't he have to go back home soon? The thought kind of made me sad, until one day, things started to make a lot more sense. I had just started working, and British Grandpa came through the drive-thru at 5 as usual, and waved with a familiar, "Hey, pretty girl." I was happy to see him, so I excitedly asked how his day had been. But it didn't hit me until he said, "Oh, it was great. I hope you're doing well today." That British Grandpa no longer had a British accent. I was perplexed, but decided to ignore it and carry on conversation until his order came. And when it did, he waved goodbye with a smile, as if nothing was off at all. I later told my boyfriend about it, who said he probably had gone senile or might have a slight case of dementia. I thought that would have been a good enough explanation to why British Grandpa had lost his accent and brushed it off as nothing. But nothing would have prepared me for what had happened a few days later. 5 o'clock rolled around, and I was in the window as always. And not so British Grandpa came along as always, but today was different. He wasn't as giddy as he always was before, and when I greeted him, he just sort of grunted with a head gesture as he stared at me intently. Must have had a bad day, I thought, and turned around to wait for his order to arrive. But even with my back turned, I could still feel his eyes closely examining me. It was pretty unnerving. When his order came, I turned to give it to him and wish him a nice night. But he cut me off right before I could speak and said, "You know, I've been thinking of ways to fit you in the back of this truck," with his eyes locked on mine. Genuinely freaked the fuck out. I sort of tossed the bag into his truck, stammered, "Have a nice night," and slammed the window closed. He drove off seconds later. Since then, I've switched my schedule to start at 6 o'clock, and I haven't heard from him since. But I always get a little anxious if I ever see a white truck. Demented, not so British Grandpa. Let's never meet again.